So there I was, barbecue sauce on my titties, when I woke up and I found that Bungie have released an honest-to-God, top-to-bottom rework of competitive Crucible. So I punched myself in the face to just make sure I wasn't dreaming. Turns out I wasn't. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over the things that I think are the most interesting parts of this update. I don't want to do the whole YouTuber thing where we sit here and read the thing that you can read for yourself. All right. I've just picked out 3 things and they're all related to each other. One good, one concerning, and one downright ugly when it comes to this PvP overhaul. There's a lot more to talk about, and I'm sure everybody else has covered that to death, but I want to talk about the things that matter to me because I don't need a reason. Anyways, so the first good thing, obviously, is that we have an actual competitive ranked ladder now. Like an honest-to-God ladder system that we've been crying out for as PvP players for I don't know how long now. So, there are 7 divisions, each with 3 subdivisions. Copper, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Adept, and Nomad. I'm now morally and legally obligated to get Ascendant every single season, otherwise you can all call me a fraud and I can't do anything about it. If you're asking why does this go, why should I care? I don't really care about what's the point of this. And also, why is this better than Glory? The thing is with Glory was just an arbitrary number that went up based on winning and losing. It wasn't a reflection of any amount of skill, aside from perhaps the time period in which you got it in, which you can't see. Once you have 5,500, it doesn't say you got 5,500 in like 2 days or 3 days or 3 weeks, right? All it is a reflection of how much time you spent and how great your win-loss ratio was. It's not actually a measurement of what your skill is. And that was really frustrating because you could be 5,500, you could have 2.3 KD, 2.4 KD in control, and then go to trials and never go flawless. It wasn't a true indicator of what your skill is. This, in theory, should be a little closer to the mark in terms of measuring skill, which is really, really important for everybody in the Crucible who wants to get better, people who want to improve and test themselves. You know, if you are a good player, you can hang in control, maybe control is a little bit easy for you, but you can't really cut it in trials, this will be the place to figure out how far off the top you are. In theory, Ascendant, I'm expecting, hopefully, they've tuned it in such a way that Ascendant is reserved for the top like 2% of players, something that's super, super hard to obtain. You know, only the very best of the very best will become Ascendant. We don't know yet. That remains to be seen. But if it works out this way, that means everybody who wants to get better now has a metric they can aspire to. They can say, okay, well, I'm only Plat 2. I want to be Ascendant 2 or Ascendant 1 or Ascendant 3, whatever. I want to be Ascendant. But I've got 2 subdivisions in Platinum to improve upon. I have a whole other rank, Adept, to improve upon, and then I have to win that promotion series to get to Ascendant. It provides people with a roadmap and a journey that they can either choose to accept or reject entirely. It's up to them. But the point is, you can see the path in front of you now. How far do you have to go between where you are now and where you want to be? So moving on, this whole ranked ladder system works with a placement series, during which you will not gain any division. So you load up competitive, you get put into a series of placement matches, which is fairly standard with most competitive games online. I know Overwatch does it, CSGO does it, and Rocket League does it as well. Basically, you play 7 games. After the 7th game, you complete the placement series and are placed into a division based on skill. For the first season, the highest you can be placed is Gold 3. In future season, you can be placed closer to your previous competitive division. I think that's a very good call because in Gold 3, that's fairly middle of the road, right? That's fairly middle of the pack. So there's no pressure for anybody to feel like they need to use the most meta options available. There's no absolute like necessity for you to run Gerfalcon's Hallberg and like a fusion rifle or whatever the meta is, right? You can just play yourself, get a feel of competitive Crucible, and then move from there. I always encourage that you use the stuff that works best for you. And in this first season of competitive, you can do that and achieve the maximum possible rank. You could rock Yotun for all I care, or Lumina, or whatever else. And if you're good with it, you'll probably end up Gold 3. And that's a good sign, because if you can rock what you want and you have fun and you get assigned the max rank, that's probably going to improve your chances of actually playing more and wanting to play more, and then suddenly finding a challenge that you really, really enjoy and you want to develop different strategies and different loadouts and all of the rest of it. It becomes this whole other beautiful ball game. Now, how do you actually move between ranks? As you continue to compete in the competitive division, your division rating is adjusted based on 4 major factors. Match outcome, which is a win or loss, that makes complete sense. Division inflation, deflation, how far above or below your division is compared to your skill, fine. Match performance, how well you perform on a match basis, that's, yep, KD, kills, deaths, whatever. Player to lobby skill delta, how your skill compares to everyone else in the match. Those 4 things, I think objectively that's perfectly okay. But then I start to think a little bit more about this, right? I start to think a little bit more about what they're saying here. And they've said this word skill a few times now. A more accurate representation of skill compared to your skill. What is skill in Destiny 2? Well, to figure that out, we need to go back to the 28th of July, right? All the way back here. That's when they introduced loose skill-based matchmaking, and they decided to define what skill was. They defined skill as the term that refers to how we rate all players who participate in PvP on a scale of 2,000, minus 1,000 being the low end, and plus 1,000 being the high end. Player skill is reflected on a graph that looks like this. So most people are around that 0 to 200 mark, it looks like. Internally, skill is a combination of stats made up of your performance. Kills, deaths, captures, round wins, revives, etc, etc. That ranks you against all the other players in a match. Each player's skill is compared against the skill of the other players in a match, and we make skill adjustments for all players at the end of a match where the 2 rankings differ. There's also confidence rating. The more games the system has seen you in recently, the more confident the skill adjustment is. What skill as a system is, as described by Bungie, as far as I can work out, is that it is a metric of relative performance to the lobby that you've been placed in. And with skill-based matchmaking being a thing now, you could, in theory, have a high skill rating based on the current lobbies you're currently matched in. Now, if you're an average player and you win 10 games in a row, does your skill then go up to a level where you're at the higher end of skill-based matchmaking and you're sort of like doing that 50% win-loss thing, right? Like there's so many questions here. It's not quite well defined. All we know is it's a measure of relative skill to your fellow players. It's not an objective measurement of average match performance, if that makes sense. So when they say they're matching by skill, right? Compared to your skill, you're matching through skill. What does that mean for ranks? Does that mean that we could have a Gold 3 match against an Ascendant 1 because of their skill level? Or is this a definition in between the actual ranks themselves? So Competitive Division uses a new skill-based matchmaking setting built using concepts we developed for loose SPMM tuning, but tightened to match you more closely against an opponent of your skill. So I have some questions here. If it is skill-based, if this is the primary way that Destiny is going to be matching players, is through this internal skill metric. First of all, what is the point of ranks then? I'm really struggling here. If you have a skill rating of say 800, will you always be matched against people of 800, 700 to 900 skill, irrespective of what rank they are? If that's the case, then why bother having ranks? And how does this make this any different from the glory system that we have already? The only thing I can think of that makes this make sense in my head is if they're expecting a high population, a high player turnout in each respective rank. And then, say if you have 1,000 players in, say, Platinum 2, you can't just connection-based matchmaking them, you have to try and group them up in terms of skill because there will be a variance within those 1,000 players. So is this what the system is doing? Or is it a global setting that's being applied to everybody irrespective of skill? That's the thing that makes me concerned, and I hope that we see some clarification on that moving forward. Because as it stands right now, how this is working, how the matchmaking works, it seems like I could be an Ascendant level player in theory, but if I match only other people of my skill, and I maintain a 50% win-loss against those people, like they've stated in the past, I won't move out of my rank. I could be Gold 3 forever. So there's some concerns there. Hopefully we get a clarification on this because this is a bit like, not sure about this. Sounds good in concept, but when you think about it a little bit more, based on the wording that we've had here, I have concerns. I think that is the best way to, well, I've said that like 15 times, so of course it's the best way to say it. Now, if skill-based matchmaking is concerning, what's the ugly side? Because I've already gone off a huge tangent on this. There's something that concerns me more than this, and that's the rewards. Competitive division rewards. Since competitive division is aimed at drawing a close link between skill and division, we don't see division as something to really grind for rewards. It's a bit of a red flag for me, but let's keep going. We don't want someone to feel pressure to play tons of games looking for a drop, all while your division rating drops and you ruin your division standing. Instead, we want the primary motivator to be your actual division. We aren't going to be adding any unique grindable rewards outside of those you can get anywhere in the Crucible, and really focus on our rewards on weekly participation and achieving higher divisions. Okay. What this is specifically referring to is Luna's Hell and Not Forgotten. It's just that simple. If you're new here to Destiny, basically those two guns were locked to the previous competitive system, where if you hit a certain rank, Fabled 2100, you get Luna's Hell, and if you hit Mythic, you would get Not Forgotten, which is 5500, the max rank. Those weapons were low-key broken. They were 100% stronger than everything else you game, and they were legendaries. They were outperforming exotics. They were a must-have, and that led to a lot of resentment from the PvE crowd, from anybody who is a PvP person but isn't good enough to get those guns. Basically, it was a flawed system, and you had OP rewards at the end of it. They don't want to have a repeat of that situation. Personally, I understand that. I totally get it. I think you shouldn't have things that are completely that basically make the playing field unfair. I don't think that was the answer. But what I don't see ever acknowledged when it comes to any discussion regarding pinnacle rewards is that there's more to the story than just those things being overpowered. Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten were really, really strong because all other hand cannons at the time suffered from ghost bullets. If we had had hand cannons on console being able to shoot where you aimed them and having recoil not completely whiff the entire next shot, maybe they wouldn't have been so prevalent as they were. Ace of Spades was a competitor to them because it had tuned stats that made ghost bullets very, very rare, whereas every other legendary hand cannon suffered from that, and it was really not good to use them. In comes the precision frame archetype, and then you can 3-tap by hitting crits? Yeah, of course it was going to be heads and shoulders above everything else. So that's the concern, is that, like, rewards are important in Destiny. And you've scrapped them because essentially the last time you locked good rewards behind PvP, it caused a sandbox imbalancing issue. And the core issue behind that imbalance was not addressed. Instead, all the blame was laid at the feet of Not Forgotten and Luna's Howl. Now, I don't doubt for a second that it caused some toxicity between players, that it caused social circles to break down. I went through it. I understand. I did that to my friends, and I still feel terrible about that. But it's a looter shooter, and you have to give people the option to grind for the rewards that they deserve. If every other endgame aspect in this game can get rewards, why can't Crucible? It's really that simple. So I tweeted this out at Bungie, to DMG. I said, he's asked, how are we feeling? He said, reserving judgment, need to test out, though I have to say the decision to not have any unique reward for the ranked divisions on launch is a weird one. It doesn't have to be a busted pinnacle. DMG responded by saying, I hear and feel that feedback. As noted towards the end, team is looking into cosmetics and such for competitive division, which is a really good sign. I think cosmetics is absolutely the way to go. Something like universal armor sets, emblems, shaders, mementos would be amazing. I do hope they address that, because it's so frustrating, because you have all this good coming out of Bungie with respect to PvP, but it's clear that the old problems left a really, really deep mark that hasn't been totally erased, and it hasn't been dealt with in a coherent way. It seems like there's a little bit of revisionism going on when they communicate about overpowered rewards. It's like, they were overpowered, absolutely, but there was also the environment that contributed to them being overpowered. Like, the bigger picture was not taken care of. And I just hope that these changes that they're moving forward, they are done with a lot of care and a lot of lessons learned from the last time we did Comp and the last time we did Trials of the Nine, and any time they've tried to do any PvP experiment that failed. I hope they've really addressed the real concerns. The skill thing, the skill-based matchmaking thing, when we really should be having ranked-based matchmaking, because all competitive ladders should be rank-based. If you have a rank, you should play against other people of that rank. It's not a hard concept. But as it stands today, we're still on that glory train, and that's concerning. Overall, I have to say, things are looking very bright. I think out of the 25 or 26 categories of changes that I listed down, about 17 or 18 of them were net positives. All the Iron Banner changes were fantastic. Quick play being rolled into Clash and Control being rolled into quick play, excellent. Skill-based matchmaking coming to Iron Banner, not so sure of, but we'll, again, let's wait and see. I don't want to say they've knocked it out of the park. I think that would be generous. A lot of this is wait and see. But on the scale of positive and negative, PvP was like at a -80. -90. To get to a point where it's +90, +100, that was a tall order. What I think this update did at the very least is it took it from -80 to 0. That's a huge win, no matter how you look at it. It's still a long way to go. Still a long way to go. But they pushed the cart forward, finally. They pushed it up the hill. They've gone back to some sort of baseline, and it's very clear from this update that they're setting foundations here. They're setting bones down. Now we can build on top of that. I just hope that whatever's happening behind the scenes, whatever stuff they've hired, I hope that it results in a better and brighter Crucible for everybody moving forward. And hopefully a little more than one map in the entire year of Lightfall, because that's whack. I'm sorry. One map? Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this new style of content. Let me know if this is something you'd be more interested in seeing. A huge thanks to the patrons as ever who keep this channel running. And as ever, I'm Ascendant Nomad, and very soon, I'm going to be your Crucible Doctor. Cheers.